Hi, welcome back to my read-along of A Tale of Stars and Shadow. Today we're up to chapter 27, so let's get into it. She still had to cajole the wolves through training each day. They did try harder, but Theak had been right. They were so demoralized it was impossible for them to see any hope of a good outcome. Despite her own crippling doubt, she was determined to make the most of the 6 weeks they had. She introduced Sabai techniques that were advanced for beginners, things she hadn't begun learning until the second and third years of her Talyn apprenticeship. Predictably, they struggled, particularly Theak and Halun, but the increased quickness and agility gained from perfecting the moves was going to be needed against the winged folk, and so she pushed them, making them repeat the moves over and over 100 times, 200 times, until they could get it right. Every evening they retired to the barracks with sore, aching muscles and needed lengthy stretching the next morning to work out the stiffness. Still, it was not without reward. She saw the improvements in them, even though they thought it made no difference. Talyn worked just as hard alongside them in the heat, trying to show them that she was with them all the way. Every time she sensed an improvement in their attitude or morale, she pushed at the crack, trying to widen it. Most times she failed, but there were times when she didn't, and through it all, she refused to stop trying. And somehow, it was helping her too. As horribly frustrating as it was sometimes, the sheer effort and focus she had to put in meant she wasn't thinking about Sari every other second or dwelling on her fear of being permanently broken. She didn't know how long the distraction would last, but she welcomed it with open arms nonetheless. Talyn shut the door to her rooms behind her, a heavy sigh escaping her as she sprawled along the plush couch. It was evening, and she was exhausted. After another difficult training session with the wolves, she'd spent the remainder of the afternoon working off her frustrations in solo practice. As a result, her muscles ached with the pleasant weariness she always felt after a workout. She sighed again and rose from the couch, loping into her small kitchenette to pour a glass of water from the jug she'd brought up that morning. She sipped it while she busied herself tidying the room and folding her meagre pile of clean washing. Darkness was beginning to fall by the time she finished, and she decided to have a bath and clean up before grabbing a quick meal in the barracks and then curling up in bed with a book. She found a library in one of her many wanderings around the palace. Hopefully it would keep her engaged until she grew sleepy enough to fall asleep without her mind talking to darker thoughts. Her bedroom was dim and stuffy from the day's heat. She went to open one of the windows and swore aloud at the sudden twitching of the shadows in the corner. Before the realization had even fully processed, she was leaping back towards the door, hand dropping to her sides. The Shadowhawk was her first thought. He'd gotten in again, damn it. But then the shadows moved forward, materializing into a much older man with his hands held up in the air. "I'm not here to attack you," he said in a whisper-smooth voice. "Just to talk with you." Talyn eyed him. He was tall and lean, wearing simple, innocuous clothing. She could just make out a pair of expressionless grey eyes under the hood. Most obvious was the fact he was human, not winged. Although she could barely make out his features despite the light from the lanterns outside shining through the window. "Normally people knock on my front door when they want to speak to me," she said coldly, keeping the open door at her back and not moving her hand from her side. "I'm not normal people. I've been waiting here for a whole full turn." The dry impatience in his tone took her aback. "Sorry to hold you up," she said. "Are you one of the Shadowhawk's people? I thought he'd already made his point about how easily he can get to me." "My name is Savin." "Is that supposed to mean something to me?" The gaze pierced her. A chill shuddered down her back. This man had a dangerous, predatory air about him. Yet she didn't feel threatened. Odd. "Nobody has mentioned my name to you before?" Sari roused. "So we've got a Shadowhawk, a royal family who can't make up its mind whether their youngest prince should be protected. A prince of night, and now a shifty man named Savin? The puzzle just keeps getting more complicated, doesn't it?" Talyn ignored Sari's gleeful summary, keeping her focus firmly on Savin. His tone irked her. "No, I just asked you the question to hear the sound of my own voice." "I don't appreciate sarcasm." She huffed a laugh. "I don't appreciate people creeping around in my bedroom, especially when I didn't let them in here in the first place." He studied her for a long moment, and she had to fight the urge to squirm as if she were a naughty child. "I'm here because I've been instructed to introduce myself to you." "By who?" "That's not relevant." Talyn had enough of the secrecy and mysteriousness. If this man meant her ill, he would have attacked already. Dropping her hand, she walked over to one of her lamps and lit it, before motioning him out of the room. "You said you wanted to talk, so talk. Who are you?" "I work to protect the royal family through the gathering and exploitation of information." So you're a spy. She'd wondered if the Falcons had a more secretive wing, and though she was surprised they would stoop to recruiting humans, it made sense given how large the human population in Mithanis seemed to be. That's a crude way of putting it, and the word doesn't encompass all of my activities. But yes, my role is to guard the Condor's well-being. Since you are the captain of Prince Kewin's newly formed wing, I was instructed to make contact with you so we can form a working relationship. There will be occasions when you have information I need, and vice versa. I've been here 3 months. The question was implicit in her voice. Why now? He chose to ignore it. You have. Fine, we'll play it that way. Who is your ultimate loyalty to, Prince Kewin or the Queen? Or the Falcon, she challenged. A beat of silence. I have an interest in the younger prince. That doesn't answer my question. As Kingshield, my only interest is Prince Kewin. I couldn't care figs for the Queen, her other sons, or anyone else in this country. If it came to a choice between saving Prince Kewin or his mother, or even my king, my oath demands I save Prince Kewin. I won't be sharing information with anyone who will be relaying it to a third party. I understand, Savin nodded gravely. Believe it or not, I appreciate your loyalty. Talyn relaxed slightly and leaned against the wall. You do, huh? Tell me more about this spying, Savin. A smile crossed Savin's face, but it was far from warm. What you know is the same as the other wing guard captains in the protective flight. It's all you need to know. Very mysterious, Talyn said dryly. The curiosity is killing me. I came here tonight not only to make contact, but to discuss the Shadowhawk. Talyn's head came up in a flash. It had only been a few days earlier the Shadowhawk had followed her to a bar. It seemed more than a coincidence that this man who'd crept into her bedroom uninvited now wanted to discuss the Shadowhawk with her. The criminal who champions the cause of the humans? What could you possibly want to talk about with me? I believe he was behind the break-in at the palace. I know his sympathies lie with the humans, and his network is based in the human community, primarily in Dock City. Yet I don't know who he is, and I haven't managed to identify anyone close to him. She laughed softly. You must think me a fool. He shifted, the darkness blending and rippling around him. I'm sorry? You say you're here because you protect the royal family and I'm in charge of Prince Kewin's protection. Yet it's taken you 3 months to come and talk to me. Then you say you want to chat about the Shadowhawk because you think he broke into the Citadel. 2 months ago. You're not here for either of those reasons, and if you thought I would believe your rubbish pretenses, then you must think me a fool. There was a long silence then. Well, if I did think you a fool, I certainly don't any longer. Yet what I told you is true. I am concerned with Prince Kewin's welfare, and I am concerned that the Shadowhawk might have been behind the break-in. Are you telling me you think the Shadowhawk is a threat to Kewin? She frowned, seeing an opportunity to learn more about this man the Callanan was so interested in. Not to mention the easy way someone had gotten so close to Kewin that night had left her profoundly uneasy. What has this Shadowhawk actually done besides steal some supplies from the winged folk? What's he after? It started some time ago, around 10 years before Prince Kewin was born. Things would go awry. Shipments of delicacies meant for the nobles disappearing, troubles for the Wingguard when they went into the city, muttered unrest, that sort of thing. At the time, it was all blamed on a shadowy figure who named himself the Shadowhawk. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise. This has been going on since before Prince Kewin was born? And why is he telling me all this? No, that's when it started. When the princes were all still boys, the activity stopped, and the name of the Shadowhawk faded away. For a long time he stayed dead, and then it all started again some 3 years ago. We don't know if it's the same person. He'd be older now, but it's definitely possible. If it is the same man, why did he stop for almost 30 years? He stared at her, expression unchanging. What does he want? Okay, you don't know that either. What makes you so certain the Shadowhawk was behind the break-in? I'm not certain of anything at the moment, Captain. He glanced around. I think we're done here. Just as he reached the door, she had a flash of inspiration. It was almost like she could hear Sari's voice in her head urging her on. This man was a problem. He'd accessed her quarters with ease for the primary purpose, she was now certain, of learning what she knew. She had no clue as to his motives or his true position in relation to Kewin. Until she learned that, she needed to keep him on the hook. Wait! He turned, almost a complete shadow in the darkness of her room. If you are who you say you are, you will keep me apprised of any information that relates to Prince Kewin's safety, she said. But don't expect it to be a two-way street. I don't know you, and creeping into my rooms with false reasons for why you've come doesn't leave me inclined to trust you. The silence became drawn out as Savin made no reply. She almost thought she caught a flicker of approval in his eyes, but in the shadows it was impossible to tell. Eventually he spoke. I'll contact you soon to set up a way of meeting covertly when I have information for you. I will agree to do so if you agree to keep our contact a secret." She nodded agreement. "I'll be waiting." Savin paused at the door. "You're not at all what I expected, Captain Dynan." "No? What did you expect?" "In all honesty, I had absolutely no idea." As he walked out, Talyn caught an expression on his face that made her suddenly think she'd just been very cleverly manipulated into something he'd wanted all along. "Who are you, Savin?" she murmured into the darkness. "And what is it that you really want?" He wasn't to be trusted, but he was a way of gaining the information the Callanan had sent her here to get, and a way to help protect Kewin. Information was power. She'd have to handle him very carefully. Okay, that brings us to the end of Chapter 7. As always, if you want to avoid spoilers, and there will be some today, definitely jump out here before I start my author commentary. And if you are jumping out here, thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoyed that chapter, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Otherwise, for those who are happy for spoilers, let's jump into some author commentary. Oh, so we finally get to meet Savin in this chapter, and big spoiler alerts drop out here if you don't want spoilers. We actually have already met Savin, because Savin, switch those letters around, is Narvis. So Narvis has been working his little plot along in Mithanis on behalf of Prince Tarkos and Prince Azralan. He's been working closely with the Shadowhawk as part of his, kind of role as a informant, a criminal informant, connected into a whole bunch of different networks that he makes, he gathers information from and makes himself useful, both earning him coin, but also earning him information, the information that he needs, the information that Tarkos and Azralan need to bring their plan to fruition. The Shadowhawk is obviously a big wild card, particularly for Azralan, so Narvis has been keeping an eye on him, but he wants to learn more about Talyn. He's learned a little bit through his encounters with the Shadowhawk and his role as a criminal informant, but he's decided to make direct contact with her to learn a little bit more. Now, Talyn is hilarious in this entire conversation. She's very much back to her old kind of experienced Callanan operative here in this scene. There's no real sense of low self-esteem or her grief or guilt here, and that's a large part, as she refers to earlier in the chapter, because she's been so focused on really working with the wolves to try and get them over the line that it hasn't left any time for that. And so she's in a better frame of mind and a more focused and work-like frame of mind here with Savin, and she doesn't buy a cent of what he's telling her. She's left kind of feeling like he was actually there just to basically learn what she knew, and that is essentially correct. Her attempt to recruit him to work for her is a shot in the dark, a way to keep him closer, a way to learn more about him. Maybe that was exactly what he wanted, and that's fine as far as she's concerned, as long as she remains in kind of that driver's seat as far as she feels like she is anyway. But Savin, Narvis, the same person. He's such a sneaky little shadow, and there are quite a few references throughout this scene to Savin's shadow ability. Talyn not picking that up necessarily. Maybe that is a result of the rust that she's accumulated, being away from the Callanan and being so grief-stricken for so long. But she's in a completely different place where she wouldn't expect to see one of the shadows. And as we know from later books, she does eventually pick that up. But Savin was hiding there with the shadows around him, waiting for her to come back. So for the reader, we have a sense of what he might be, or at least a little breadcrumb is there to go back later when you know who Savin is. That he's one of the shadows of Firthland, and he's working on Tarkos's behalf. So that was a really fun little scene. I like it when Talyn's at the top of her game, when she kind of knows what's going on and she's playing the chess match. That's always really enjoyable to write, particularly given it's writing Talyn's character up until this point has, for the most part, with exception of a few scenes, been quite heavy. So yeah, really fun one. If you have any questions or comments about Savin or Narvis or this scene or anything else, please drop them in the comments below. I'd love to answer and have a chat with you about it. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed chapter 27. Very soon we'll be heading on to chapter 28, and I can't wait. I'll see you then. Have a great day.